I recently did a video with my reactions to different stories that viewers had sent in particular from their times working at parks, but a few visits as well, and got such a great response. Well, hey, let's do it again with some new stories. So thank you to everybody who sent in stories when I asked. I got some great ones here that I didn't get to share in the last video, a few that were sent after the last video, and some just really wonderful stories. So I wanted to share them with you, along with my reactions, and then my own thoughts and experiences in regards to a couple of them, because a couple of these are just wonderful here. I'm going to warn you ahead of time, this last one. The first one is from Kristin Watkins, and she says she has a lovely story from her time at Disney's Hollywood Studios. My number one goal for my Disney career was to get to work at the Great Movie Ride. The ride has meant a lot to me since I was about 4 years old. I always thought the tour guides were amazing and was always in awe of them. Kind of like me when I was a kid. I love the people who worked at the parks. When I got older, I decided I really wanted to work there and to be that for other little kids as well. So one day I'm doing a show, and when we were sitting down watching the finale montage, I hear this little girl behind me say, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to ride this ride again." My heart just burst because I imparted some of the magic of the ride on her. So I do another show, and when I return to the dock, my coordinator lets me know I have a show request. I was confused because no family or friends said they were coming to me. Now, for anybody wondering, a show request in this case means that a guest who's getting ready to ride has requested a specific cast member be the one to lead their tour on Great Movie Ride. So I look outside the door of my casting director, and lo and behold, it's that little girl and her family. Man, that was the best. I was so honored and ecstatic. I did exactly what I wanted to do. After their second ride, the family was super sweet and told me the little girl loved the ride and that I had made an impact on her. I almost lost it. The little girl wanted a picture with me too, so we took one and said our goodbyes. I really wish I'd remembered to ask her name, but I was really trying not to cry. I get that. Regardless, this was my top favorite Disney moment and always will be. Unfortunately, the Great Movie Ride is gone, which, and that is a true shame, but at least there is a 28-year legacy that will always remain. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed. Some of my favorite memories when I was working at the parks, in particular at Disney, as well as at Silver Dollar City, was when you would have the kids come in, sometimes dressed up in the roles we did. I had several pictures I took with little conductors and little engineers at the train. We had it at Disney World. There were a couple times that we had kids come in dressed in costumes looking like PhotoPass photographers. That was awesome. Then all the photographers wanted their pictures with this kid. I remember a few times kids handing me their autograph books, for me to sign. And I'm like, I'm not even a character or anything. But that was just a really cool thing when you knew that you had an impact on somebody in such a way that they wanted you as one of their memories and their pictures, their autograph books and stuff like that. That was just really cool. Yeah, I love moments like that. When you know that you've taken something and just made it come alive for a kid. Oh, I love stuff like that. Thank you so much for sharing that one, Kristin. Kirsten. Get your name right. Another email here from the Auntie Chan. She says, I used to be a ride operator, did it for 3 years, and I've had wonderful experiences with it. The kids are always kind and made my days fun. I can remember this one time I was working the antique carousel. It's been in our theme park since it opened, and there was a young boy, seemingly with autism. Let him go around the normal amount of time. With the specific ride, there was no time limit on it for how many times it could go around. When it was done, he asked if he could go again, and I agreed to let him keep going. Park was fairly quiet that day, for it was kind of rainy. Hey, re-rides. He was enjoying himself very much and smiled at me every time we went around. His mother thanked me for letting him just go around until somebody came in line. When he finally got off, he thanked me and gave me a large hug. It looked like he was having a hard day, so all I wanted to do was something to make it slightly better. Made my day as well. It kept me smiling for the rest of that workday. Oh, the hugs from the kids when you'd done something that they loved, those were the best. Yeah, I miss stuff like that. That's going to be one thing that's going to be hard when the parks reopen, is it's probably going to be very limited to no contact at all. And that's going to be tough for some of the kids when they're used to just hugging, and it's going to be tough for some of the cast who are used to getting hugs. But I loved it when when you knew you had done something and the kid, again, want to come up. Those were the things that would make not just your day, but your week sometimes. And especially if you're having a rough day, that was just awesome when it happened. I miss those. Howdy, George. I wanted to share one of my favorite theme park stories. It was back in 2012 at my happy place. Now, this is actually from a guest, not an employee. So, Tweetsie Railroad. As per usual on these sorts of trips, we boarded the train and we headed for the Frontier Outpost. Here our train was robbed by the Flaming Hot Sauce Bandits. Tweetsie's train robber gang, named as such because the robbers' code names are named after brands of hot sauce, such as Texas Pete and Tabasco. That's awesome. On a side note, the wife of the owner of Texas Pete was the pastor at our church for several years. That's kind of cool. Anyway, we soon headed out to Fort Boone. Just before we left, Tabasco, who was on our train car, was walking through looking to take our valuables. I told him, "All I have is this lunchbox." So he responded, "I'll take it." And that he did. He also took a little girl's pink cowboy hat, giving her his cowboy hat. Once we got to Fort Boone, Texas Pete and Tabasco ran into Fort Boone, and then they went up to the top of the fort. I don't remember all the words exactly, but I remember Texas Pete asking Tabasco, "What's that?" "It's my lunchbox." "No, I mean the pink cowgirl's hat. You're not a little girl." And from there, the hijinks ensued. Eventually, Tabasco initially dropped my lunchbox on the ground, and then kindly picked it up and handed it back to me. Guess what was inside? 2 bullet shells. I can tell you I was one happy camper that day. That's from Jonas Snyder. Awesome story. We loved on the train when we were robbing, when people would give us weird stuff that we could interact with. Hats sometimes, sunglasses, toys. I had a couple times I was given dolls on the train. Anytime you could get something like that that you could just interact and make fun up, yeah. Just be creative with and do some goofy stuff. We had more fun with weird things that guests gave us, and then of course trying to make sure we got it back to them because we didn't want to keep anything out in the woods, but it just created some hilariously fun stories. Every now and then you get something like, "I can't believe they gave me that." We did the girls' hats on occasion, and just a number of things that were fun. Lots of fun that way. I do find it interesting that you got a couple bullet shells. We actually, at Silver Dollar City, we did have a policy that we were not allowed to give out the shells that were left over from the blanks that we fired. That was a huge no-no. For safety reasons, in our case. As I was explained, it's to make sure that no little child takes one and then puts it in their mouth, which means somewhere along the way somebody had given one to a kid and they put it in their mouth, and because that's the only time that stuff like that comes back to you. Yeah, we weren't allowed to give them out at Silver Dollar City because there were times I really would have liked to. There were people who asked, but it was a definite no. In our case, because it was just powder blanks, they were plastic cases anyway, so it wouldn't have been a real neat thing, but yeah, that's very cool that you were able to get one. Tweetsie, I've heard such good things about Tweetsie. One of these years I'll get out there. Here's one from GeekMoto. One day while working at half a dozen flags, I was sent by my ride lead to help out on a coaster that has loading on both sides. They sent me down to the split position. Basically, and I'm abbreviating the story just a little bit here, what the split position is when you have a roller coaster, for example, Screaming Eagle at Dollywood, Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, X at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and there's various other ones, that because of the way the seating is arranged, it's on both sides of the train, and then the train that's on the track is in the middle, so you actually have to split up your seating, which means you've got people boarding on both sides of the train and then getting off that same way. You can't just file the row and then they go off. So they have to split them into 2 separate lines. Long explanation, but I hope that's clear. Anyways, while working split, I had been clued into a video monitor I could use to watch the line progress and try to keep it as even as possible with the help of the monitor. I could also keep an eye on the exit as it sneaked by the entrance area. I was watching that monitor and saw to my horror a dumb guest climbing over the fence from the exit line to the entrance line to shortcut it. The video feed had 4 cameras. I knew exactly where the cameras were looking, whipped my head around, yelled at the guest who was in the process of crossing the fence. Officially, that fence was protecting ride area, but since the gap was about a foot across and nowhere near the track, felt it was safer for him to just come down and have a wait for the rest of his group. Don't climb fences. As they waited for the rest of the group, I held the group up at split while I gave the dumb guests a very stern lecture and reminded them that if I ever caught them doing that again, they would be immediately kicked out. Fortunately, they didn't give me any grief about it and understood how dumb their decision was to climb the fence. Never saw them again and never saw anyone try to do that again. Okay, folks, if there's a fence, it's there for a reason, especially at rides. Thankfully, it was a spot that wasn't dangerous. Oh my, I've seen people do things with fences. I'm like, are you kidding me? Disney, you see them climb fences to get into rides or into lawns. I watched one girl that on one of my trips to Disney World. She was climbing a fence that was a high fence bordering the castle moat area to get a picture with the castle behind her. Well, she'd fallen. It was a 30-foot drop down to the moat. And I'm going, oh my goodness, you're going to get... Don't climb fences. Even if you... I don't want to walk around the line. Wow. That's one of the things that both as a guest and as a ride operator and employee drives me nuts, is because it's so dangerous so often. I'm happy those kids listened to you, GeekMoto. Happy they did it at a spot that there wasn't a ride operating right there. Oh my goodness, that could have been bad. Worked at Legoland, more specifically at the UK park in Windsor. Worked in the ground ops department for 4 years and seen and interacted with thousands and thousands of guests. My story comes from when I was working in Miniland. Now, if you don't know about Miniland at Legoland, it's these little miniatures. Now, I'm in the top portion of that area, and it's split into two sections. Top section has famous monuments like Big Ben, the Statue of Liberty, the Eiffel Tower, the Kremlin, and many more. I was just wandering about the area doing my job, and one of the things I do besides giving pop badges to the guests is to make the park nice. Anyways, I'm doing my daily rounds in Miniland, checking everything, and this little girl comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, do you know where the Skyrider is?" Skyrider is actually really cool. It's a little monorail that you actually pedal to make go around. Neat ride. Been on the one in California. Cool ride. Now, this girl was probably no older than 6 or 7 years old, and she said all this to me in English, but English wasn't her first language. I was just speechless. I've in the past let guests exactly where they need to go, either when I can't remember which direction to go in. But as I lead the girl and her siblings and her relatives over, once they saw the ride, the girl went, "I see it." And almost immediately the group thanked me for helping them find the ride. As soon as they were out of sight, all I could say to myself was just, I've never heard the English language uttered so beautifully in all my life, and by a little girl at that. So impressed with the little girl, and not to mention she was speaking a different language. One of the things I loved about Walt Disney World in particular, and this is true when I visited Disneyland Paris as well, is listening to all the different languages and the accents. There's something about hearing English with an accent that's different than yours that is just beautiful a lot of times. You can hear it with the Spanish accent. Mexico and Central America has a very distinct sounding accent to it. I love it with the French accent. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. And of course, for us in the States, when you get the British, the Welsh and Scottish, I like the Scottish. Oh my goodness. The Scottish accents are gorgeous. Australian as well. Italian has a really neat accent to it. So it's really cool when you get to hear all these different languages, even if they're speaking one language, the accents with them. Yeah, I love that part. That was cool. Yeah, I can totally imagine what you mean by it was so pretty, because there's times you're going, oh, I wish I could speak like they do. Yeah, I miss that. Where we're at here in Missouri now, it's basically one accent. It's a southern Missouri. I don't want to say hillbilly, but it's not really southern either. It's definitely a distinct dialect. We get a little bit of Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas, but it's nice, but it's nowhere near as pretty as some of the language accents you'd hear, both in California as well as Florida. So I miss that. One last one I've got here, again from Tweetsie Railroad, from one of the employees there. He says, "We had a Make-A-Wish kid at Tweetsie last year. His dying wish was to visit Tweetsie, so when they wheeled his chair up on the last car on the Mouse Mine, I made certain he had a good time." Now, the Mouse Mine, I actually had to look this up. There's a really cool ride-through video on YouTube. It's a small train. It's a real train, but as they go through the course of the track, they actually come up to this tunnel that leads you into the Mouse Mine, and then they stop, and there's this really cool show that plays. I was like, oh, this is cool. I want to ride this thing. So it's a train, though. Made certain that he had a good time, so I gave him a hat and made him my junior Tweetsie conductor and put him in charge of the whole train. When I asked, "Mr. Conductor, are we ready?" His little voice could barely shout, All aboard! But he was grinning ear to ear, and I had to get in the engine quick before I started to cry. Barely made it. Oh, yes. The Make-A-Wish kids were awesome. They were wonderful. They were fantastic. They were heartbreaking. They pulled at your heartstrings like nothing else. Both Disney and Silver Dollar City. I didn't see him as much at Busch, but when you had that opportunity to work with one and to make a little bit of magic with one and do something special, it was amazing. We love to be able to make them guest engineers and guest conductors. As an engineer, we couldn't put him into the car up in the engine, but we put him like in the first seat right behind it. As conductors, we'd put him in the back seat right by us. We'd sit right behind him. I loved when we had the open windows on the cars because then we could actually talk with them the whole time. Loved to be able to have them do the all aboard, and we would hold the mic. I would hold the microphone up and let them do it into the PA system. And yes, you're smiling, you're happy, and at the same time inside you're going, "Oh my goodness!" And I'm a weepy crybaby anyways and stuff like that, so I would. The Make-A-Wish moments were some of my favorite moments. They were the ones at Disney that I like to tell people, if I hadn't cried behind the lens at least once during that week, it was an off week. And it was crying because of the Make-A-Wish kids and moments that we would see and watching them interact with their favorite characters and the smiles and watching them do stuff they didn't get to do and then trying to capture those moments on the cameras. That was amazing. That may very well be the part of the job I miss the most. I miss working with the kids. I miss teasing the kids and stuff like that. But the Make-A-Wish, that was awesome. Love to hear your reactions to these stories too. If you've got a good story from working at a park, send it my way. I'd love to do more of these as well. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts and your feelings. Don't hesitate to comment below. If you've got a story to send me, send it to SirWillow@gmail.com, and I'd love to be able to do a follow-up with this one as well. Thank you so much to everybody who sent in a story. Great stuff. Thank you for watching as well. Thank you to my patrons and members on YouTube for your financial support. If you want to know more about any of that, don't forget to check the description below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe as well. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. If you'd like to know about my merchandise, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you'd like to know whenever I've got a new video posted, well, make sure you hit that button right up there and subscribe. If you'd like to watch another one of my videos, I've got a great one for you right here. And if you'd like to be like these wonderful people here and support me financially on Patreon, well, make sure you check the link right there. There's even some extra perks for them. Thank you so much, and God bless.